Last week, I added Cel-Shading to Magneto. It turned out pretty good. It is one of those figures that looks better with Cel-Shading. Check it out if you haven't already. Today, I'm gonna work on MADELYNE Pryoor, the Goblin Queen. This is a very interesting figure. It looks better in hand than in promotional images. I thought it looked a little generic from the promo pictures. But is it? Let's deconstruct this figure. There's an FAQ on the paint and brushes I use in the description box below. First of all, I noticed they covered up her thighs on the figure. In the show, she's wearing these really high boots and her upper thighs are exposed. But they painted her thigh this dark grey color on the figure, giving it more of a bodysuit look. I wonder if that's intentional or if this figure is based on an old concept art. Either way, this figure surprised me, and in a good way. She may be wearing a cape and heels, but she's actually not that difficult to balance. I had a lot of trouble balancing Rogue. That figure could barely do a basic standing pose, so I was expecting the same for MADELYNE. But thankfully, despite having even smaller feet, she's not too difficult to balance. They did a really good job with the hair and the face. She looks exactly like the artwork on the packaging. I like the way her hair is sculpted. It doesn't really hinder the head movement that much. The only thing that holds this figure back is the overall simplistic color scheme. Adding Cel-Shading to her outfit will make her pop so much more. So that's what I'm gonna do today. Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. Whether it's repainting my figures or making diorama displays, I love making things look awesome. My goal is to elevate my figures so they can shine on my display. Join my DIY venture as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? Let's start with her thighs. Let me see if I can mix the pink skin tone they gave her. No, purple isn't the right color. Let me try pink. Okay, I think this is pretty close. Let me see. This is gonna take a couple of layers. I'm gonna do one thin coat at a time and wait for it to dry before I add the next layer. Okay, I got impatient. I tried adding more layers before the paint dried, and I accidentally picked up some of the paint, so I tried to patch that, and then it didn't look right, so I added even more paint. Anyway, the thighs look good from afar, but the texture is a little bit bumpy up close, but I'm gonna leave it. Sometimes the perfectionist side of me wants to take over, but I've learned to accept flaws. Flaws are not mistakes. Mistakes can be corrected, but nobody is flawless. Every cel-shaded X-Men figure I've done so far has flaw in them. Wolverine got claws that are too blue, Storm's hair got these really thick outlines, and Magneto got pink highlights in his hair. But to me, they are perfect the way they are. I like to focus on the positive rather than the negative. In this case, I think I did a pretty good job matching their skin tone. Now onto the highlights. According to the reference images, the highlights on her suit has this blue tone to it. It's like a dark navy gray color. The highlights on Goblin Queen is similar to Magneto, but the difference I see is that it doesn't hug the edge of the silhouette. Instead, the highlights usually appear somewhere in the middle of her arms and legs. The highlights on the torso are closer to the sides, but they don't stick to the outer edge, which is good, because that makes it so much easier to do. I don't have to worry about it not looking correct from the sides. I just have to make sure the highlights have these hourglass curves to them. They may go up and down her arms and legs, but they also kind of curve in and out, accentuating the feminine figure. Alright, look at that. That looks pretty good. I added some more thin lines on the torso. Now let me go in and sharpen some of the lines and fix some of the mistakes with the black. Okay, onto the brooch. It kinda looks like the sun. It is missing the fine details. Normally, I would paint everything first to make them matte. But these micron pens don't do that well on painted surfaces. So I thought it would be better if I used the pens to outline all the little circular gems first. The big red gem in the center is actually much smaller in the show. So let me do a thick outline around it to shrink it visually. And I'm going to add those funky black swirls around the perimeter, giving it that shiny look. Alright, almost there. Her cape. More specifically, the underside of her cape. It is red. Dark red. Kinda like a vampire red. So let me darken the red by mixing a bit of blue in it, and apply it all over. I want to add a base layer of paint and cover up the little text in the center. Next, let me darken that color even more with the black, and I'm gonna add this color to the folds as a shading color. Okay, one last thing to do. I want to add a bit of Cel-Shading to the cape too. I couldn't find that many references, but I believe the highlights on the cape are a bit more muted, more like a gray. So I'm gonna add a bit of gray here and there to give the cape that leathery shine. Alright, I'm happy with how it looks. Let me sear everything with a matte spray. Onto the head. The face looks good, but the hair will look so much better with black outlines. So, time to try out this Gundam fine tip pen. According to the packaging, this pen may clog up on painted surface too. So I'm just gonna have to use it before I paint. Let me see. I got this in the color gray. I figure gray may be a better color since it's not as harsh. Oh, oops. Okay, so unlike the micron pens, this pen dries right away. And when it's dried, it is dried. So that means I have to follow the grooves very carefully. Alright, next. Let me do a thin coat of orange over the hair to mattify it. It is thin enough where it won't cover the lines. And after that, I'm gonna darken the color and add a bit of shading here and there to give the hair more dimension. And finally, just a dust of the skin tone color over the face to mattify it as well. Alright, here it is. Madelyne's head is all done. The head looks so much more three-dimensional, even though it's meant to look 2D. Here's the baby. It's honestly very well made, but to make it go with the rest of my X-Men, I'm gonna outline the baby. Okay, that was a weird sentence. There we go. Okay, I think I made it look even weirder. What bothers me the most is that there's no official way to carry the baby. They did show that Madelyne can hold it in the promotional images, but I don't recall her holding the baby in her Goblin Queen form. The baby was always floating behind her, so that's what I'm gonna do too. I'm gonna levitate the baby with some paper clips, and I'm gonna use hot glue to give it that magical effect look. In the show, Madelyne's power is green and purple. I have this neon paint here, so that should be perfect. And let me add a bit of purple here and there as well. Okay, the purple kinda dried darker than I wanted, but it's okay, because baby Nathan looks very happy being held in the air. You can see the joy in his eyes. Alright, here's Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen, all finished. I love it. I love how natural the cel shading looks. With all the cel shaded X-Men I've done so far, this may be my favorite. For now. I'm not too familiar with this character. I only know her from X-Men 97, but I feel like I captured her look from the show very well. The part that was the most challenging for me were the thighs. But you know what? I don't even notice the bumpy texture anymore because my eyes are drawn straight to her face. It's so striking. I think it's the hair. The cel shading on her hair looks pretty convincing, even though it's actually a bit sloppy up close. But from afar, it does look very cel shaded. The Gundam pen worked out really well, but it is very permanent. I'm likely gonna use both the Micron and Gundam pens depending on the situation. The Gundam one is great, but the Micron one dries a little slower. I can use a wet brush to fix mistakes. I'm also happy with the magic effect on Baby Nathan. The idea of leaving Baby Nathan unattended really bothered me. I don't want Madeline to be holding the baby 24/7, but I also don't want to just leave the baby on the floor or something. This is the perfect solution. No child neglect here. Alright, let's end this for the photo shoot. Because of the way her thighs are painted and she has really small feet, I'm not gonna move her legs much to prevent paint rub and her falling over and over again. But to her credit, she looks pretty cool just standing there. And she also looks great next to Magneto, even though I don't think they were ever in the same scene. Anyway, Madeline is so animated. Look at her playing with Nathan. Okay, it's not giving motherly vibes, but she really cares about Nathan, okay? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video like I did. Give it a like and subscribe to see me work on more X-Men. And as always, stay inspired and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.